Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 3-0 Take, where we talk all things Major League Baseball. Here's Kyle Corwin and Nate Reyes. It all starts right now.
Welcome back to the 3-0 Take, presented by SeatGeek. This is episode 428. I'll be your host, Kyle Corwin, and I'm here with my co-host, not Nate Reyes. Nate Reyes, however, is stateside, back from the honeymoon. And quite honestly, I wish he was on this particular episode because he could have told me that I just spent the last attempt at this episode talking with the robot sound effect on for like 10 to 15 minutes before it was brought to my attention. So we're going to run it back. Remember last episode when I said, just hope that you all bear with us as we transition to some new equipment, some new gear. This is what I was referring to. I was apologizing in advance because I somehow knew that in episode 428, the very next episode, that I'd be talking with the robot sound effect on, apparently. So I do apologize for that. We are going to run it back, though. So if you caught the first 10 minutes on the live of my first attempt when I was talking like a robot, I'm going to run it back, go over some similar thoughts, but feel free to come back in like 10 minutes if you don't want to re-listen to it again. Or if you want to stay, you can listen to me talking regularly. Okay, so let's try that. Before we get into baseball talk, though, to reiterate, amidst all the technical issues, Nate is back stateside. Glad to have him back from his honeymoon. He should be back on the pod hopefully later this week. I'm gonna assume that he spent a good amount of time or good amount of effort trying to keep up with baseball while he was out. But I also understand if he didn't. I mean, he was gone for like 10-ish days. So I understand if he didn't. So give him a few days to get his feet back on the ground, and we can get back to hitting the ground running with the two of us, hopefully later this week. With that said, mentioned it in the first attempt that my goal for this episode was, or my plan rather, was to headline episode 428 with the fact that the White Sox had matched their season total in wins in one weekend. Because I thought, you know what, that's pretty noteworthy. That's, who knows if we'll ever see a White Sox sweep again this season, or ever for that matter. They may not even be in Chicago by year's end. Who knows? That franchise may dissolve entirely. But that was before the big bomb dropped, the passing bomb stating that Major League Baseball's uniforms will no longer be hot trash. How about that for some good news to get your week started? How about that? Major League Baseball uniforms are not going to be garbage any longer. All right? So if you'll allow me, let's have some story time. So get comfy, maybe grab a snack. Not too heavy of a snack. It's not that long of a report, but I'm going to run through this report. If you haven't read it already, I'll save you the trouble because I'm sure this report will be referenced in the coming days. It'll be making its rounds. So sit back and enjoy story time with Kyle. All right, again, this is from Jeff Passan, titled MLB to modify uniforms after player complaints per memo. According to Jeff Passan, Major League Baseball plans to address its uniform fiasco after changes this spring to the standard jerseys and pants led to widespread complaints from players and fans, according to a memo obtained Sunday night by ESPN. The most prominent modifications include a return to larger lettering on the back of jerseys, remedying mismatched gray tops and bottoms, and addressing the new Nike jerseys' propensity to collect sweat, according to the memo distributed to players by the MLB Players Association on Sunday. The changes, which will happen at the latest by the beginning of the 2025 season, will also include fixes to the pants, widely panned this spring for being see-through. The union informed players of the coming changes in a letter that placed the blame on Nike and the debut of its Vapor Premier uniform, which was advertised for its superior performance but remains disliked by players. This has been entirely a Nike issue, the memo to players read. Quote, at its core, what has happened here is that Nike was innovating something that didn't need to be innovated. The union also absolved Fanatics, the manufacturer of the uniforms, that has received the majority of public scorn for the uniform mess, saying that the company, quote, recognizes the vital importance of soliciting player feedback, obtaining player buy-in, and not being afraid to have difficult conversations about jerseys or trading cards. Our hope is that moving forward, Nike will take a similar approach, end quote. While the new uniform debuted at the 2023 All-Star Game, its rollout this spring led to reams of bad publicity. The shrinking of the letter size on players' nameplates gave jerseys an amateur look. The pants, which according to the memo will return to the higher quality zipper used in 2023, had myriad of issues, including the see-through fabric, a lack of tailoring, and blowouts players believed unnecessary. Nike's partnership with MLB began in 2019 when it took over as the league's official uniform supplier as part of a 10-year, $1 billion deal for Major League Baseball. Fanatics has partnerships with both the league and the union. We caution Nike, quote, we caution Nike against various changes when they previewed them in 2022, particularly regarding pants, end quote, the union memo read. Major League Baseball had been and has been aware of our concerns as well. Unfortunately, until recently, Nike's position has essentially boiled down to nothing to see here. Players will need to adjust. MLB declined to comment. Nike did not offer immediate comment when reached by ESPN. Fanatics did not respond to a request for comment. The MLBPA declined to comment. Oh, it was a little longer than I thought, but still relatively short. Shorter than most reports, I'll give you that. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't foresee this happening. I didn't foresee it happening this season. Didn't foresee it happening next season. And if I'm being really honest, I didn't foresee this happening during the length of this contract, this joint contract, or however this contract is structured. Nike, Major League Baseball, Fanatics. I didn't see this happening. I thought that this was purely going to be a thing where we look to Nike, to Major League Baseball, to Fanatics for answers through constant complaining, through constant documenting, pictures, videos, pictures of that you've all seen. Pictures of the sweaty uniforms, pictures of the small lettering, the pictures of the mismatched grays, the videos of pants ripping down the entire back of the thigh on separate occasions. I thought that was going to fall on deaf ears. I thought the three-headed monster, if you will, of Major League Baseball, Nike, Fanatics, I thought that they were just going to treat this as we're going to pinch our nose and look away because there's nothing to really see here. We're innovating. We're making these uniforms better. We're making them more breathable. We're making them more enjoyable for the players. They're going to like them. We promise. They've already told us. Well, that's not true because the players quite literally told you that they're garbage. So I'm not sure which players you're referencing. And if there were players that said it, I'm only imagining that the percentage of players that told you that they liked them was far outweighed by the percentage of players that couldn't stand these uniforms. Not to mention the fans. The fans, let's be real. I feel for the fans who purchase jerseys, who they just bit the bullet. They said, I can't wait. And they probably were thinking like me. They're probably like, well, this issue isn't going to get fixed. So I need to just go ahead and buy the uniform because nothing's going to be done about this, and understandably so. That's a rational way to think about it. I guess I was just going to be on jersey holdout until Major League Baseball chose a different supplier or manufacturer, because I was not going to buy this. I didn't care if some insanely awesome jersey, some alternate dropped, and I was like, I gotta have that. I gotta have that of my favorite player. It wouldn't have mattered. I couldn't go through on buying these things. I feel for the fans that already bought these uniforms. I would love to hear that there be some sort of like refund process put into place, but I'm thinking Fanatics has way too much on their hands at this point for that to be even on the horizon. I'm glad it's happening. I wish as a major manufacturer that this would be able to, that this would be addressed sooner than the beginning of 2025. But I like that. I like the idea that we just ride it out in 2024. We just deal with this garbage. And then we hope and we pray that Fanatics, Nike, whoever's responsible, truly responsible. There's a lot of finger pointing. Whoever's truly responsible for this, that they iron out the issues, they get it fixed, and then we don't have to worry about this from 2025 moving forward. We just go back to what was and what was working. You don't need to fix it if it's not broke. I feel like that goes without saying. And I feel like that should have been understood from the jump with these uniforms. But alas, here we are. And there were a number of folks in the comments of the post that I put out in regards to this report, talking about how, well, just because they say addressed doesn't necessarily mean that anything tangible is going to happen. No actions will take place. That's understandable. If that's your belief, that's understandable. Maybe it's the optimist in me. Maybe it's that I've just been so fed up with this for the last 3 to 4 months that any news indicating that there's an imminent change, I'm just latching onto, and I'm just going into it with blind faith, going, okay, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what they say. They're fixing it. I don't care what other reports come out. They're fixing it. They already said they would. Maybe that's just the optimist in me, but I would think that the language, the tone of this report from Jeff Passan would indicate that that's not the case. That when I say not the case, that nothing's going to happen. What I'm saying is, I think the tone of this report is indicating the opposite. That something is going to happen. The changes are going to be made. The line that he uses where he says the most prominent modifications, that kind of language, remedying mismatch grays, changes which will happen. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of promising language, a lot of details being laid out, a foundation is being laid for these changes to take place. I think it's safe to assume that these are going to happen. It would be different if the report came out and said, Major League Baseball, Nike, Fanatics, they're gonna sit down at the table, they're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna see, or they're going to see what changes are necessary, if any. If the report came out and said that, okay, they're just meeting for a cup of coffee and maybe a free meal or something. That nothing was going to happen at that point. But the fact that they're already talking about, they're identifying the changes that we've been clamoring for as fans, that the changes that players have been asking for, and that's the other thing, is they're not even changes. We're just going back to what they were. I don't want Nike or Fanatics to come out of this looking better or expecting to look better for making these changes, because at the end of the day, they're not changes. They're going back to what it was. They're going back to, or we can only assume, we can only hope that they're going back to the uniforms that, again, didn't need fixing. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of finger pointing going around. Not really sure who's truly to blame here. Fanatics, Nike. I'm not exactly sure Fanatics is completely absolved of any fault here, if that's the case, because you have to look at, I'll tell you exactly where you should look. You go to Fanatics Sucks on Twitter. Great follow. They basically serve as a hub for, trying to pull it up here. Yeah, Fanatics Sucks. They basically serve as a hub for every complaint that you're going to be able to find about uniforms that fans buy, that players are wearing, complaints about just regular team merch that people are buying, like T-shirts that are being sent by Fanatics. They'll order like a Chicago Cubs shirt and they'll get a Nashville Predator shirt in the mail or something. So I don't. For people saying, well, this is truly on Nike, but Fanatics is taking the heat. Well, Fanatics, if you believe that, it doesn't change the fact that Fanatics in and of themselves are a garbage organization in terms of manufacturing for these major sports leagues, because even if they're not truly responsible for the uniforms, let's have a separate conversation about the merchandise, because it's terrible. The shipping, every element of that process, the customer support, the purchasing, the delivery, the item selection, it's all messed up. So if you're not following them, go check them out. It's a very interesting follow, and you can really see just what's really going on over there at Fanatics. It's not ideal. But all that to say, don't want to drive this into the ground. Just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on the report that dropped tonight. Great news for baseball. At the end of the day, great news for baseball. It would be even better news if it came out and found out that maybe we were looking at a different manufacturer, a different provider for these uniforms. But, beggars can't be choosers. Baby steps. This is a step in the right direction. Well, again, not to repeat myself, but we're not really going in the right direction. We're not taking steps to make positive changes, because we're really just going back to what we had before, which is where they should have left it from the beginning. Moving on here. Talk about taking steps in the right direction. I already alluded to it. The White Sox with a sweep of the Tampa Bay Rays, who I didn't realize are on a little bit of a skid of their own. I mean, we sit here, talk to her blue in the face about how the White Sox are a poverty franchise, but the Rays are, I don't know, man. I started the season saying that this team can manufacture 90 wins in their sleep. I'm not saying the end is near for the Rays, but they're 13-16, dropped 6 of their last 7. 3 of those 6 came at the hands of the White Sox, who, again, prior to this weekend, had fewer wins than UConn men's basketball. I know I've mentioned that multiple times, but it's worth repeating, and this is the last time that I can even really say it, now that we've surpassed that win total. So, not a good look for the Rays, but, a great weekend of baseball for the White Sox. And talk about turnout. They had. I think it was today. I saw clips of it was a day game, so it was today. Saw clips from their game today. And the people in Chicago, good on you. Good on you. You haven't completely abandoned your team. It would be understandable if you had. It would be understandable. But I saw people in the stands. There's no denying it. The video evidence is there. And what better way than to show up for a sweep on Sunday? Saturday's game is where I have some questions, though. And it's not even about the game. It's about It's about the call. Did you all see the video? Did you hear the clip from Benintendi's walk-off? That was wild. That was wild. Okay, so Andrew Benintendi hits what I believe is a 3-run walk-off home run into the dead of night of Chicago. Fireworks are going off. The fans are going nuts. And I understand. The White Sox wins have been few and far between this season. So I get the excitement. But Andrew Benintendi's making his way around second, making his way around third. And on the call, all of a sudden you hear, for the first time all season, the Sox have won 2 in a row. Say it with me. Say it proud for all the haters. South Side, stand up. And I had to go back and listen to it again because I said, I know I didn't hear what I think I just heard. For all the haters. Again, I get getting swept up in the moment. It's an exciting night for Chicago baseball on Saturday. I get that. You win 2 in a row. The first time all season, probably the first time in months dating back to 2023. I don't know the last time they actually won 2 in a row. So I understand it from that side. But you're going to sit here and talk to me about, say it for all the haters. My brother, are you seeing the product that's on the field right now that you're watching and that you're calling and broadcasting for? The hate is justified. The hate watching is justified. The memeable team that you have before you in the Chicago White Sox, it's real and it's justified. So I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what that could have meant, what that call could have meant. But looking at the big picture here, the White Sox improved to 6-22. They outscored the Rays 21-13. So, like jokes aside, despite the skid that the Rays are on, you could have had a worse team to take on this weekend and to sweep. I'll say that. Like there obviously are far worse teams out there than the Tampa Bay Rays. So, if you're gonna flip the switch and get clicking, get moving here, start working your way out of this hole and work your way back to some let's see here. I was gonna say start your long journey back to 500, but right now you're working your way back to 300 ball with a current win percentage of 214. So you know what? Journey to 300 ball. That should be the motto in the White Sox clubhouse. Get back to 300. That's what we should be focused on, White Sox. Back to 300 ball. This might be the highlight of their season. It might be the highlight of their season. I'm not kidding. Is there anything aside from stumbling upon a no-hitter, which I won't put it past the White Sox, that happens. It doesn't matter who you play for. That'll happen. You'll stub your toe and you'll fall into a no-hitter. That's just the way baseball works. So that could happen, sure, and that could be the highlight of their season. But big picture-wise, a sweep in April to kind of wrap up the month here, that's what we're looking at. And that's sad. And I understand why White Sox have been calling for drastic changes. Because you have now overtaken the Oakland A's as the laughingstock of baseball. Despite this sweep, you since pretty much opening day, you have been the laughingstock of baseball. And it's sad. We talk about the Cubs being a historic franchise. White Sox have a little bit of history behind them too. And they deserve better than this. But we're not going to focus on the negative. We're going to focus on the positive. Getting back to 6-22. Working our way up to 300 ball. Forget 500, 300 ball. Speaking of the Oakland A's, Are the Oakland A's like not bad? Can I ask that? Is that all right? Because this weekend they took a series from the Baltimore Orioles. Well, no, let me rephrase. They didn't take a series from the Baltimore Orioles. They took a series from Craig Kimbrell. A guy who, for all intents and purposes, I know he can give you a heart attack en route to a save. But for all intents and purposes, statistically has been pretty good, if not great, up to this point, up to this weekend. 2 blown saves. A lot of people were wondering. It was Friday night, and right, Friday night. Yeah, they got I think the Orioles took Saturday. Blows the game Friday. Blows the game Sunday today. A lot of people, a lot of Orioles fans were wondering why he even saw the mound today, which I think is very reactive. If I'm being honest, very reactive. I know the pen may be a little overworked at this point, but closers aren't invincible, especially not Craig Kimbrell. And so he has a blown save on Friday. It's like, okay, he's still Craig Kimbrell. Like, I don't think we need to sit him for a week. I don't think we need to give him a phantom IL stint to get his head right after one blown save. It's not his first one. It's not his first one. He's your closer. I mean, what do you don't have Felix Bautista right now. That's the guy that you have to put in save situations. And I saw I saw a few accounts out there talked about how, well, not every save situation has to feature your closer. So then what do you have a closer for? I'm not saying it has to be 100% success rate or that you have to have a closer 10 times out of 10. But like it was a 1-run game, was it not? It was like 5-6, 7-6, something in there, I think. That's the guy that you have to go to. He had the day off Saturday. That's a veteran. He's been in this situation before. That's the guy you go to. I don't know. It sucks that you waste a couple good nights of offense, especially from a guy like Gunnar Henderson, who's just been playing at an MVP caliber level this season. I think our friend of the show, our friend of the pod, Ryan Ripken, was on to something saying that this could be an MVP season for Gunnar Henderson. I didn't want to believe it, because there's some other names, even within the division, that I thought would be taking that title, a la Juan Soto. And I'd say he's having himself quite a start of the year too. But wow, Gunnar Henderson, man, tell you what. But we're not here to talk about the Orioles as much. This is about the Oakland A's. This is fresh off a series split with the Yankees. It split a 4-gamer in the Bronx. And then you come to Baltimore, you take 2 out of 3 from them. That's an encouraging week. That's something to build off of. And especially, I already mentioned it. You've got the White Sox over there running their own circus. This is just me. I have to think that that's helping the Oakland A's. Now that you have a team that's taken over the circus of baseball or become the circus of baseball, you can just worry about winning the next game. You don't have to worry. You're not on, if you recall last year down the stretch, we were on Oakland A's win watch. You're not on that right now. You're playing good baseball. Mason Miller is the talk of the town, talk of baseball, and for good reason. Although I do fear, and I apologize in advance. If something happens to him, you can blame me. You can clip this, and you can throw me to the wolves. How long is that arm gonna last? I'm sorry. I just got to ask the question. How long is that arm going to last? How long is that elbow going to last? I mean, we're talking Oakland A's. Dallas Braden himself, we mentioned on this pod, he talked about, he tweeted rather. Did I say he talked about it on this podcast? I didn't. No. Friend of the pod, Dallas Braden, talked about it or tweeted about it. That the frame, essentially, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially the frame, the vehicle that the body is, that the human body is, doesn't have the capacity or the ability to handle the horsepower that these arms now generate. He's touching like 103. The horsepower doesn't get much greater than that. If you're a major league pitcher, doesn't get much greater than that. So again, just had to ask, and I'm not trying to take away from the one of the lone positives that the Oakland A's are working with. I just had to ask the question. But you know, if you want to look at positives here, if you're the Oakland A's, you've got a 10-game homestand now. You've got a 10-game homestand coming up. The next 6 games that you've got, 3 against the Pirates, 3 against the Marlins. Now, I'm not saying that we're gonna overtake the AL West, which, if we're being honest, has not been impressive this year. Has not been impressive. You got the Mariners at the top, leading the division, leading the way at 15-13. That's not moving the needle for anybody. I'm not saying they're going to overtake the division, but if you can put together forget the next 6 games, that 10 games at home, if you can put together a good stretch over those 10 games, all right, you're in the conversation of being a respectable franchise again. And of course, all of this is on the heels of Sacramento and Vegas. But wouldn't that be the most Oakland A's thing to do, is to go out and, I don't know, I'm not going to say take a wild card. Relax. I'm not getting that far ahead of myself. I'm not saying they're going to go get a wild card spot, but like, wouldn't that be the most Oakland A's thing to do, is the final year in the Coliseum, the final year before they back in the moving trucks, that they go out and put together a respectable season? I don't know what that looks like in terms of win totals. Don't ask me for a number, but a respectable season. Interpret that how you will. That'd be something that they would do. I could just very easily see that happening. Getting a little bit ahead of myself. Before we talked to White Sox and A's, I did want to talk about the standings, but I was just referencing the standings, so not a bad time to jump into it. We are officially a month into the season. I'm not counting the Korea series. We are officially a month into the season from the United States opening day. So I wanted to run through the standings real quick just to give you all an idea. If you've been listening to this podcast and you've been listening to me talking about how standings in April don't matter, and you agree with me, you probably haven't been looking at the standings. And I know it's ironic for me to be spouting that off and then go, hey, we're going to look at the standings. I'm not looking at the standings for any reason other than to just for this to serve as a checkpoint, just to give you all an idea of who's where, maybe highlight some different run differentials, because the standings don't matter. But certainly looking at where teams are at the end of each month, I think is at least worth noting. All right, so American League East, you got the Yankees, O's, Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Rays. I already mentioned the Rays they're not exactly trending towards a 90-win season that I pretty much had chalked them in for. But, you know, it wouldn't be the first year where, I think we get swept up a little bit in the fact that they start, what was it? What did they start last year? It was like 22-6 or something, so just something insane. That's not going to happen every year. So we can assume that the years surrounding that start, that they were a little bit more mediocre out of the gate, which is where they're at right now. 3 games under 500. They got a negative 32 run differential though. So if you are trying to reach this 90 win threshold, this 90 win benchmark, that's going to have to change, obviously. But I just think I don't think they have the pitching. That's the issue. You got some dudes in the lineup, but the pitching, it's going to have to be better. It's going to have to be better. I mean, you're trending towards the top of the American League in terms of runs allowed. And when I say top, I really mean the bottom. 148 runs allowed. Nobody in the division has even allowed 130. So, and I know that can change in a couple of days, but it's kind of where they're at right now. So the rest of the division, though, Yankees playing fantastic ball. 19-10. Look, the Red Sox are a good story right now, but I don't know, man. Oh, they had a good weekend against the Cubs. That's what I'm telling you, man. Every game, I'm living and dying by every game, which again is something I haven't really done before. I've really just been more level-headed. Like, hey, we'll wait to see. We'll pick our heads back up in September, see where we're at. And things more often than not are in okay shape for the Sox, but I'm living and dying by every game this year. So who's to say, man? Maybe this becomes a multi-team race, but I think it's going to come down to the O's and Yankees if I'm really being honest. And that's not groundbreaking news, but I'm already seeing some concerns from Orioles fans. Talking about their bullpen. I mentioned they feel that it's already being overworked right now. I'm seeing people calling for Kimbrel to be let go. Orioles fans, you've had a little bit of a run here as of late, last year or two. Let's be a little more rational. Let's be a little more reasonable here. No need to go cutting your closer, especially when your actual closer is MIA. You know, let's keep our heads a little more level. You know, that it's not too much to ask. The Central, the Guardians. We spent a good portion of last episode talking about the Guardians playing fantastic ball. My weekend series to watch was the Guardians and Braves, and I actually was able to get around with a rather busy weekend. I was able to get around to watching 2 of the 3 games. I sat there today. Despite it being like 85 degrees outside, I was like, I'm just going to lay here and enjoy a nice leisurely Sunday. And boy, was it worth it, man. That was a great game. I don't know Guardians or Braves fans listening if you all watched the game today, but well, Guardians fans probably not too thrilled, but great ball game. And the game what was the other one I watched? Was it last night? I think it was last night. Tanner Bybee had a great game. I sat him in fantasy because I thought, well, he's going up against, it's a close matchup in fantasy. I can't be hit with a massive negative score from Bybee going up against the Braves, who are like the world beaters offensively. He goes out and has the game of his career. I kid you not. I'm pretty sure it was like the best game of his career. Probably of his life. That's probably my luck. But yeah, that was an entertaining game to watch. Who knows? We might see those two teams again. I'm not putting the Guardians in the World Series in April, but that'd make for an interesting World Series as it stands right now. Royals also holding their own, 17-12. They've dropped 2 in a row though. The Twins, they're 4th. They're behind the Tigers, who have won 2 in a row, but the Twins have won 7. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're finally back up to a positive run differential. And as we mentioned, the White Sox, 6-22. I'm looking for something positive to share. I can't really. They're 5-9 at home. I mean, if we're looking at how many games they've won 5 of them at home. So I guess that's a positive takeaway. The road, they're atrocious. 1-13 on the road. That's awful. The AL West, you got the Mariners, Rangers, A's, Angels, Astros. Look, I know Houston picked up their last 2 this weekend. But making me a little nervous. It's still April. But 9-19, man. If you hit 20 losses before you hit 10 wins, that's going to make me a little uneasy. As somebody who, me and Nate both have said that a bounce back is inevitable. Like, this Astros team will be fine, but like we can't be hitting 20 losses before 10 wins. We can't be hitting 30 losses before 20 wins. Like, you got to get close. You got to get back to somewhat close to 500, Paul. This isn't going to work. You're going to need to figure it out. I mean, you got, I think Luis Garcia, Framber's back. You got Luis Garcia on deck here somewhat shortly, I believe. I think next month, if I'm not mistaken. So you got a little bit of help coming, and you just got JV back, as we mentioned, but gonna need to get out of the basement. You can't be sitting below the Angels for much longer. I mean, the Angels have enough problems of their own right now. They've dropped 4 in a row. National League East, you got the Braves, Phillies, the Mets, Nats, and Marlins. I don't know why the White Sox are getting so much hate. The Marlins are sitting at 6-23. They're already 14.5 back. 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 6 straight. Nats at 13-14 though. They might mess around and go 500 this year. The Washington Nationals might mess around and go 500 this year. They've played good enough ball to this point to make me believe that it's possible. CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore's good enough for 500. I could see it happening. I'm gonna need. I know Keibert Ruiz was just activated off the IL, but I'm gonna need Keibert Ruiz. I've been singing his praises for far too long and haven't seen the results I thought I was gonna get. I'm gonna need a little more out of Keibert Ruiz moving forward now that he's back, now that he's healthy. Atlanta Braves, still one of the best teams in baseball. But the Phillies also have as many wins, so something to keep an eye on. I think that's what baseball needs to root for, is a Braves-Phillies race down the stretch. That's one of baseball's better rivalries, and I'll stand by that. The Central, you got the Brewers, Cubs, Reds, Pirates, Cardinals. Nothing really stands out, honestly. I mean, aside from the fact that the Cardinals are sitting in last, but they're only 2 games below 500, 13-15. Pirates are 14-15. So that'll very easily change. I'm not concerned about that. There's really nothing to write home about in regards to Central. Brewers are holding their own in a division that I think a lot of people had the Cubs. Honestly, I think This was probably the most toss-up-y division, I think, coming into the year. And I think for as many people maybe had the Brewers to win the division, there's probably equal, if not more, people that had the Reds, the Cubs, the Cardinals. I'm sure the Pirates got some write-in votes too, but we said that at the beginning of the season. Ryan, Nate, and myself, we talked about how that's could be anybody's division, and it's on par for that. Cardinals are in last at 4.5 back, so it's going to be a close throughout, I would imagine. The West, you got the Dodgers, Giants, Padres, D-backs, and Rockies. Again, like the Marlins, not sure why the White Sox are getting as much heat as they're getting. The Rockies 7-21. They're already 10 games back. They're on the road to playing 300 ball. They're trying to fight back, but they dropped 2 of 3 this weekend, so they got a ways to go. Former National League champs, D-backs 13-16. Padres, they've dropped 4 straight. They dropped a close one today against Philly, but obviously having lost 4 straight means they got swept, which that was another series I was locked in for. Just whatever you do, don't let it be a Giants-Dodgers race down the stretch. Nobody wants that. We need Padres-Dodgers. I get the historical element of the Giants and Dodgers. I get that. But the future's now, old man. The future's now. We need the Padres and Dodgers to get back to their vicious ways. It's better for baseball. It's better for baseball. They have more, and look, it's objectively the truth. They have more dudes on that team that would make for a better rivalry with the Dodgers than the Giants. That's just the reality of it. Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts he'd be prone to throwing some hands if it got heated enough. It's just the truth. The Giants-Dodgers rivalry is more of a fans thing, I think, at this point. It's more between fans, but on the field potential, I think it's Padres-Dodgers. So let's all root for that to continue. Revisiting, going back to some O's talk, it happened later towards the end of last week. Jackson Holliday gets sent down. Revisiting the O's, as I mentioned, just briefly here. I put out the video talking about, it was a clip from last episode talking about, is now the time to send Jackson Holliday down? A lot of people were asking it. It begged the question. His performance had begged the question. He had 2 hits and 36 plate appearances. I was of the belief that the Orioles could manage to have him up, to have him, I don't want to say fight through it, but to just take his lumps on the go and figure it out as he went. They could afford to do that because they're winning ball games. The depth they have, the talent, it's crazy. The buzz, the momentum. And then on top of that, I was like, you got the A's coming to town. Well, the A's came in and took 2 of 3. So I guess baseball laughed at that perspective. They said, no, we're going to send the A's into Baltimore, and that point will be mute. It will be irrelevant. And I guess the O's got ahead of that. They said, I'm sensing a little momentum from Oakland coming into Baltimore. Maybe we should get ahead of this and send our guy Jackson down. because we're going to be up against it with the Sacramento A's of Las Vegas coming into town. They could feel it. They could feel the A's running up behind them, breathing down their necks. And they said, "No, we can't afford to experiment with Jackson up here. We got a massive 3-game series coming up." So they sent him back down to AAA. Ultimately making the video put out on YouTube irrelevant, but it was fine. But he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Ryan's been tweeting about it. He's a positive guy in general, but he's of the belief that they're going to be all right. And I'm of the belief too. There's so many people talking about this kid's a bust. They rushed him way too early. They brought him up way too early. Not every prospect is going to react the same way. So to sit there and say, well, objectively, they just brought him up too early. Says who? He forced their hand. He had a great spring training. Had a great start in AAA. What more is he supposed to do? How can, as the Orioles front office, how can you look at that and go, wow, now we got to keep him down? He forced their hand. They didn't necessarily rush him. I mean, maybe that's the case, but it's not set in stone. It's not face value. Take it as fact that they rushed him. There's a lot of factors there at play. A law of averages, I talk about it all the time. He was raking in AAA to start the season. Naturally, he's going to cool down. It just happened to be a lot cooler than I think a lot of people were in that front office and organization and fan base they were hoping for. He cooled off for sure. 2 hits. Again, 2 hits, 36 plate appearances. But he'll be fine. I talked about it. I talked about it when he got called up. I talked about it even amidst his struggles. The kid seems like he has a great head on his shoulders. So I'm not worried about it. And he's got the family pedigree to back me up on that. You know that there's people in his circle that have been there before. His dad. He's grown. He literally grew up in major league clubhouses. I know that there are people in his circle that are continuing to instill that confidence that seemingly has always been there. This is the first time, I'm guessing. Well, he said it himself. This is the first time he's been challenged really in the game of baseball his entire life. So I think he'll be able to rebound. I think he'll be just fine. Ohtani getting booed. What's up with that, man? What is up with Ohtani getting booed in Toronto? I saw a lot of people talking about how, well, if you get booed in Toronto, if you get booed by Canadians, you must be an awful person. My question is this. How is it his fault that the media ran with an erroneous story? Is it Shohei Ohtani's fault that John Morosi tweeted out that Ohtani was en route to Toronto on a plane? Was it Shohei Ohtani's fault that reports about, what was it, a sushi restaurant being sold out or being fully booked on a given night, and it turns out it had nothing to do with him? Was that his fault? Why boo Shohei? Why? There was no indication that he was locked in with the Blue Jays. There was no guarantee that he was going to be wearing a Blue Jays uniform this season. There was no false tweet that was sent out saying that from John Heyman saying that Shohei Ohtani is a Blue Jay. He was never yours, Toronto. You were just one of the suitors. That's not, how often does this happen with other free agents around baseball? And they end up somewhere else. They're choosing, they're dabbling amongst three or four teams, maybe 3 or 4 suitors, and they pick one and they leave the other 3 in the dust. And we go on with our lives. Blue Jays fans, why are we still latching onto this? I don't understand it. Doesn't make sense. It's not his fault. And just for good measure, he went ahead and hit a home run in his I don't want to say return to Toronto, because again, he was never yours, but he made it known that at the very least, you guys missed out on a pretty good talent, because he went deep Friday, sort of silenced the crowd a little bit in that regard. But yeah, the whole booing thing was very strange. Did not understand it. Made no sense. And I'm legitimately surprised at Canadians. I thought you were a little more hospitable than that. I don't know. It makes no sense. What does make sense, though, Anthony Rendon going to be missing a lot of time. I think this was expected. And look, hear me when I say I don't mean to make light of the situation. I would never wish injury on anybody. I was fortunate enough when I played baseball to avoid any sort of major injury. I think the most I missed was like a few games with an AC joint sprain, which is terrible, by the way. That if you've ever had that, that's no fun. But it's nowhere near a tear of a hamstring or a partial tear of your hamstring. The only reason I'm kind of poking fun at it is just because it's the comedic timing. Like, I say what you will about the guy, but it's kind of ironic. And like I said, it's almost expected that this was going to happen, that this guy was going to miss time after just the clown show of an offseason with the sound bites and wanting to shorten the season and play less baseball, and how it's like not really a priority. And I get it. The family and all that is more important. And he should have said that. We've talked about it on here. That's not the issue. It's just the repeated emphasis on his part to belittle, it seems, to I guess that's a fair word, to belittle the occupation that pays you so much money, to the point where the fans of your team genuinely wonder if you even care whether or not the team wins or not. And that's where we are. And that's what led us to where we are now with, again, a partial tear of the left hamstring. It was a handful of days after the fact that it was reported initially that it was a strain, but then I guess further testing came back and confirmed that it was in fact a partial tear. He said himself, he says he's not going to be back in the 10-day window, obviously. But that wasn't the part that really got to me. He mentioned on there, or in a quote, I don't know if this was post game or what, but he said, I'm definitely not, he said, I'm not going to be back in the 10-day window. It's been 4 years running now. So I was angry for a few days, frustrated, mad, everything you could imagine, because the game keeps getting taken away from me, right? I want to win and I want to be out there. I do everything in my power to stay out there, and it seems like nothing is working. Anthony, That's not what you've led us to believe leading up to this point. And look, this game has a funny way of humbling guys and setting the record straight on its own behalf. And for you to sit there and complain about the game keeps getting taken away from you, that's what you wanted, dude. You quite literally wanted to play less baseball. So for you to talk about the game getting taken away from you, sure, it happened via injury, but this is what you wanted. You didn't want to play this many games. So again, another instance in which maybe you should have thought differently about the words that you were using. Or at the very least, come back and like set the record straight or clarify or something. But you share these quotes, you drop these quotes, and they're not cohesive. They're not coherent. They don't align with what you said in the past, and I'm sure what you say now won't align with what you say in the future. It's just it's a big mess. It's a PR mess. And now truly Mike Trout is, from a contract perspective, if we're talking big contracts, Mike Trout's pretty much it. Shohei's out, Rendon's out for an extended period of time. So we'll see how that goes. Ranger Suarez, scoreless inning streak comes to a close, but wanted to address it because it was a quite noteworthy accomplishment. Ranger Suarez of the Phillies, scoreless streak ends at 32 innings, which was, as you would guess, the longest in the majors this year and of his career. He gave up a home run in the 8th inning of his outing this weekend. But the 32 innings is tied for the 5th longest in franchise history. In that outing, he went 8 innings, 3 hits, gave up a run, obviously, had 0 walks, and had 8 Ks across 96 pitches. This season, though, it's really not, I mean, the streak in and of itself is great, but really what he's provided for the Phillies this year as a whole has been fantastic. Really, there's some excellence coming out of that rotation this year, but specifically Ranger Suarez this year, 5-0, 41 innings. He's sporting an ERA of 1.32. He's got a WHIP of 0.63. He's only given up 5 walks and has 40 strikeouts. So some excellent output from Ranger. The question I did have, though, is I saw that with Taijuan Walker coming back today, who got roughed up a good bit in San Diego. I believe the corresponding move, and a Phillies fan can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the corresponding move was to send Spencer Turnbull to the pen, which I'm sorry, I just don't agree with. I mean, why not? Spencer Turnbull has looked great. All things considered, for the pitcher that he is and what he historically has provided. Why aren't you keeping this guy with the hot hand? Why aren't you finding a way to get this guy some starts moving forward? And I'm sure he'll be making spot starts here and there, but why not keep trying to strike while the iron's hot? You know, I mean, you can I would venture to say that a guy like Spencer Turnbull is not going to exactly put up a Cy Young caliber season. So why not? Like, are they sensing that a fall off's coming? Are they sensing some? Or I mean, maybe are they looking into some expected numbers and projections that are coming up that do not look favorable for him? Because that's the only explanation I could find. And I understand you got money invested in Taijuan Walker that maybe you don't have invested in Spencer Turnbull, but man, is there just not a way to keep him in there? I don't know. I mean, I get it though. Like, if there was going to be a guy that you're sending to the pen, you're not exactly sending Aaron Nola to the pen. So I understand it from that point of view. But man, I just hope they can find a way to not let the momentum that he's built up to this point fall off or diminish, because they always say pitching wins championships, and pitching can be a tough act to maintain consistency in if you're not one of the more elite arms of baseball, which Spencer Turnbull, for all intents and purposes, is not necessarily one of the elite arms of baseball, but I feel like he had built up enough to at least continue to give himself a shot moving forward. But Phillies must see something different. But we'll see. I'm sure he'll be the first to get the call if an injury takes place. He'll be right back there in that rotation. That fantastic rotation. I have to reiterate. Major League Baseball Players Weekend is back. Reports are saying that for the first time since 2019, they're going to dedicate 3 days in August to players, focusing on showcasing them beyond their stats and on-field performances, according to a release distributed Thursday. So this tradition, well, it was a tradition there for a while, and then it went away. And now that it's coming back this year, they're going to have it in August, from August 16th to 18th. And I was reading, and they're going to have different themes for the 3 different days. Day 1, I was reading, August 16th. I got the notes here. It says it'll feature their personalities, their friendships, and off-the-field interests. Day 2 will focus on their charitable causes. And day 3 will celebrate the people who helped them on their path to the big leagues, including parents, coaches, and other mentors. I love it. I mean, I'm not gonna be some old man grouch here and say, like, why are we doing this? I especially love the focus on the charitable causes. I think the more time you spend following Major League Baseball, the more you realize that there's more guys than you think that are involved in some sort of cause, some sort of charity, some sort of movement, whatever it may be. Then they're channeling their efforts and energy to the right things, and you love to see that. So I'm glad that they're getting a chance to highlight those. Because oftentimes the only guys you really hear about are, the guys that have a chance to talk about what they're doing on, like, if they're fortunate enough to be mic'd up for an ESPN, like Sunday night baseball game or something, or maybe Major League Baseball decides to randomly spotlight them on their socials one day. But where does that leave the other guys that are doing great things in their communities and around the world? So I'm glad to see that. I think that'll be a cool thing. And, the whole intent, the whole purpose of this is to attract a younger crowd. And I think we've seen this serve its purpose in the past. I'm not entirely sure why they got rid of it. The one thing I did read is that they're not doing the nicknames on the uniforms this year. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if that's I saw a lot of people speculating. I don't know if it's officially been reported yet, like if this is the exact reason, but I saw a lot of people speculating that maybe it's just a Fanatics Nike thing. Like, they're up to their neck in other issues that we already talked about, and they just don't have time for this, which would be understandable. But that was something I looked forward to. I mean, the uniforms were hit or miss. There's a lot of people that hated those black and white ones. I think I was in that camp, if I recall. It's been a while. I haven't had to think about these things for a minute. I mean, it's been since what did I say? 2019. Yeah, man, the nicknames on the backs of the unis were cool. I was looking forward to those, but some guys were getting a little edgy with them. So I can kind of get it. Like, I mean, Rich Hill, like Dick Mountain. There's just some interesting nickname choices from years past. So I understand if maybe they wanted to put a cap on that. I get that. But all I have to say, excited for it to be back. And I'm excited to see how I mean, we talked about, or I mentioned what the different focuses are going to be for the different days, but I'm really curious to see how much of an effort is made to make this a truly unique weekend. I think there's a lot of potential there, and it's like mid-August, that's a great time to do it. Get some juice flowing in the dog days and give guys a chance to look forward to an otherwise normal summer weekend. Closing the book here, Yankees take their series this weekend, and that wasn't necessarily the highlight. The highlight was the fact that they put up 15 in back-to-back games. So good on the Yankees. That was the Milwaukee series, which I don't know if you saw, but that Aaron Judge interference call with the oven mitt sliding into second, we gotta chill with these oven mitts, man. They're getting out of hand. I understand it. I get the benefit of having those when you're on the base pass. I understand their purpose. But we're going to have to start putting some guidelines around it. You can't, I don't even know what it would be, but they're just in the way, man. Is there not a way that we can simplify the mold or the form-fitting element of it? Of maybe, I don't know, man, but they're massive. They're huge. And they are truly like oven mitts. And you saw today, they're now impacting baseball games on plays that don't involve a headfirst slide. Can we just make them a little smaller? That's all I ask. It's not much to ask, but they're getting carried away. And I get it. They're becoming more commonplace. And, got to protect those fingies, man. Got to protect those fingies. But just, if we don't do something about these things, you're going to start to see them grow and grow and grow. And guys are going to be walking around with telephone poles on their hands. They're legitimately going to have telephone poles taped to their wrist, and on the other end is going to be the mitt. And they won't even have to run to second to steal second. They'll just take their first step, stick their hand out, and they'll be at the bag. Stolen base in the books. I'm just saying, maybe a little regulation is all. That's all I ask. Last item here, closing the book, Twins home run sausage. I don't have much to say, but this stumbled across my feed. According to Betsy Hellfand on Twitter, she tweeted, Kyle Farmer left a summer sausage he received from Cloverdale. I don't know. I'm not a Midwest guy. Is Cloverdale is that like a convenience store out there? Cloverdale? I've never heard of that. Kyle Farmer left a summer sausage he received from Cloverdale on a table in the clubhouse. Hitting coach David Popkins grabbed it and brought it into the dugout during a game against Chicago. It's brought them luck, so now Twins hitters tap the sausage before they go to hit. The Rocco Baldelli, if you have not seen that video, please go watch that video. They were asking about this home run sausage, and it was exactly what you thought it would be, of asking a middle-aged man about a sausage in a clubhouse. Just the facial expressions, the attempt to explain it, to make sense of it, to justify it. It was hilarious, and you need to watch it if you haven't seen already. But he was in the video, I won't spoil it, no pun intended, but he was talking about how his concern is that they haven't refrigerated it, and that he's worried that if the wrapper becomes exposed, or it exposes the sausage, that It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. So, yeah, definitely go watch that video if you haven't seen it, but it's hilarious. But just wanted to throw in a little plug for the Twins. Because we've seen a lot of things in baseball, but I don't think we've seen our home run sausage before. Lastly here, closing out with the temporarily named segment. Could possibly change, subject to change. The 3-0 green light. My topic for today: dead balls. I don't know if Major League Baseball has any plans on admitting to anything. They've admitted it before. But the baseballs that Major League Baseball is using in 2024 are not the baseballs that we used in 2023 or 2022 or 2021. We're back to tweaking, to making changes, because we are seeing balls hit with exit velocities, with launch angles that 10 times out of 10, 30 out of 30 ballparks should be a home run, but that are flyouts short of the warning track. Why are we back to tweaking baseballs? Why are we back to trying to manipulate the game? I've already talked about how there's a conspiracy across Major League Baseball that the scorekeeping is so astronomically bad this year that somehow Major League Baseball is trying to manipulate offensive numbers in that regard. But they're, for some reason, trying to manipulate baseball by manipulating the baseballs. Did you see? I mean, you saw the video from the A's-Orioles game this weekend. I don't remember who hit it. It was an end shot, like a capper off the end of the bat, and the ball just disintegrates. And I do think it caught maybe his spike, but I'm not positive on that. But the ball just, even so, the ball just disintegrated, just exploded. I'm like, and the joke floating around, and Kevin Brown mentioned on the broadcast, he's like, are Fanatics making these baseballs? So, again, to reiterate, we're not using the same baseballs, and I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know why, but the numbers are there. And I may have mentioned on the last episode that OPS, shout out Yankee World on Twitter, he posted a screenshot of lowest OPS dating back to, I might just be pulling this out of a hat, 1990. Why do I want to say 1990? Lowest OPS since 1990, I think it was. You're looking at it. Through April of 2024, we're currently looking at the lowest league-wide OPS average since, again, I think it was 1990. So I don't know what the motive here is, but Major League Baseball is up to something with the baseballs, and I'm not exactly sure why. But like I said, the numbers are there, the data is there. So just something to keep an eye on. I'm sure if you're watching your team at home, you're probably seeing the same thing I'm talking about. I've seen it. Balls that you think at least 10 to 15 rows back. Camera pans the outfielder. He's coming in on the ball. That shouldn't happen. Us baseball fans, we've been watching baseball long enough. We've watched enough games on TV to know when a guy gets a hold of one. And I understand if he gets a hold of one and it ends up 2 feet short of the wall. I get that. But outfielders should not be coming in on these balls. I mean, we're talking perfect launch angle, perfect exit velocity, a perfect recipe for a home run. And we're just not seeing it. We're just not seeing it. And I keep hearing these reporters talking about, or these broadcasters talking about the wind. That's a factor, but that's not the root of the issue here. It's clear as day. Something's being done to the baseballs. That's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you following along. Went a little deep tonight. And again, apologize for that weird take one of this episode. I was messing with our new equipment. I guess I flipped on the sound effect for like a robot voice or something. So I am 15 minutes deep into the episode, and it gets brought to my attention that I sound like Darth Vader. So apologize for that if you had to listen to the first 15 minutes again on take 2. But I appreciate you all following along. As I mentioned, Nate should be back hopefully later this week. That's the plan, or that's the hope. So we can hopefully get that chemistry back and rolling, get him on here, get back to talking some baseball together. Looking forward to that, hopefully. But in the meantime, if y'all have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. My if you're watching the feed, it's right there on the screen. But you can find me on Twitter, Kyle Corwin Takes, or hit us up on Instagram and let us know what's on your mind. Love to talk baseball at any point throughout the year, off season, in season. Just hit us up. Let's talk some ball. But again, appreciate y'all listening. That's all I got. We love y'all, and as always, looking forward to talking more baseball with you guys soon. Until next time, stay filthy.